We welcome our viewers around the world. In this video, we take a closer look at extreme poverty in West Africa. We'll explore where poverty is rising, where it's falling, and what this means for the World Bank's 2030 goal. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more global insights. The learning objectives are on your screen. In this video, we take a closer look at the rise of extreme poverty around the world. We'll explain how the World Bank defines poverty, where it's rising and falling, and compare poverty levels in West Africa in Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, and the US. We'll also explore the shocking and alarming statistics in Nigeria, which, despite its wealth from abundant natural resources such as oil and gas, has 1 in 2 Nigerians living in extreme poverty. We question the realism of the 2030 poverty goal and highlight key actions governments can take to turn the tide. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more global insights. What is poverty? The American Heritage Dictionary defines it as a state of being poor, a lack of the means of providing material needs or comforts. Poverty goes beyond money. It's about not having enough to meet basic needs like food, clean water, housing, healthcare, and education. It also means being cut off from opportunities, facing social exclusion, and being more vulnerable to crises. In short, poverty is the struggle to live a safe, healthy, and dignified life. The International Poverty Line has been updated by the World Bank. It is now set at $3 a day, using 2021 international dollars. That means anyone living on less than $3 daily is officially considered to be living in extreme poverty. And here's the reality check: in 2022, about 838 million people around the world fell into this category. That's an increase of roughly 125 million people compared to previous estimates, which used the older $2.15 poverty line. This change highlights just how many more people are struggling to meet even the most basic daily needs. Even though global extreme poverty is slowly going down, the burden isn't shared equally. More and more, poverty is becoming concentrated in sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East and North Africa, and in conflict-affected or fragile states. The Middle East and North Africa region is actually seeing a real increase in poverty rates. Why? Because conflict, weak economic growth, political fragility, and climate shocks are pushing more people into hardship and making it harder to recover. The good news is that poverty is going down in some parts of the world. The biggest progress is happening in South Asia and East Asia and the Pacific, with Latin America and the Caribbean also showing some gains. According to the World Bank, global poverty reduction has slowed, but these regions remain bright spots for improvement. But let's be clear, reduction doesn't mean elimination. Many people in these regions still live in poverty, and the pace of change has slowed down. Poverty in Nigeria is rising sharply. In 2021, about 77 million Nigerians, roughly 35% of the population, lived on less than $2.15 a day. By 2025, that number is projected to jump to about 118 million people, or half of the country's population. This surge highlights how a weakening economy, living costs, inflation, and weak income growth are pushing more Nigerians into poverty. For context, the World Bank poverty line is now $3 a day, which equals about 4,380 naira daily or 131,400 naira a month at the current exchange rate. But Nigeria's minimum wage is only 70,000 naira per month, far below the poverty line, showing a wide gap between what people earn and what they need to survive. This widening gap is a major driver of hardship and rising inequality in the country. Poverty in Ghana is rising gradually, but not as sharply as in some neighboring countries. In 2021, about 7.5 million Ghanaians, roughly 23% of the population, lived on less than $2.15 a day. By 2025, this number is expected to grow to about 9 million people, or 26% of the population. This increase shows that more Ghanaians are falling below the poverty line, mainly due to economic pressures, rising living costs, and sluggish income growth. Although the rise is slower compared to countries like Nigeria, it still highlights growing vulnerability and the need for stronger economic and social protection policies to keep people from slipping deeper into poverty. Compared to some of its neighbors, poverty in Cameroon has remained fairly stable over the past few years, with slight ups and downs. In 2021, about 6 million people, or about 22% of the population, lived on less than $2.15 a day. By 2025, that number increased marginally to almost 7 million people, making up 23% of the population. This shows the fragility of small gains. Without stronger growth and social protection, even small shocks could push more people back into poverty. Let's summarize by taking a closer look at poverty levels in Nigeria, Ghana, and Cameroon. In Nigeria, about 118 million people, that's half of the population, live on less than $2.15 a day. In Ghana, around 9 million people, or 26% of the population, live below the same poverty line. And in Cameroon, the figure is roughly 7 million people, or almost 23% of the population. These numbers reveal a stark contrast between countries in West and Central Africa, with Nigeria carrying the largest share of people in extreme poverty. Remember, the World Bank's updated poverty line is $3 per day, meaning the real number of people living in hardship is likely even higher. Let's put global poverty in perspective. In the United States, about 4 million people, roughly 1% of the population, live on less than $3 a day. That's troubling, but it's a very small fraction of the total population. Now compare that to Nigeria, where nearly 118 million people, or 50% of the population, live below the same poverty line. In Ghana, about 9 million people, 26% of the population, face extreme poverty. And in Cameroon, the number is 6 million people, or 22%. This is the global reality of poverty and shows the stark contrast from nation to nation. 1 in 100 Americans live in extreme poverty. In Nigeria, it's 1 in 2. In Ghana, about 1 in 4. And in Cameroon, nearly 1 in 5. These numbers highlight how deeply uneven the global poverty burden is, and how much more vulnerable low and middle-income countries are. Poverty isn't just about income, it's about opportunity, security, and survival. What is the World Bank doing to reduce poverty? The World Bank's mission is clear: to help end global poverty. Its goal is to reduce extreme poverty to 3% or less by 2030, and to make sure the poorest 40% of people see their incomes grow. This aligns with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 1. Ending poverty in all its forms, everywhere. The World Bank supports this through development projects, social protection, and inclusive economic growth around the world. It's not just about tracking poverty, it's about ending it. As of 2025, the World Bank's goal of reducing extreme poverty to 3% by 2030 looks increasingly out of reach, especially when we look at countries like Nigeria, Ghana, and Cameroon. This is bad news, and the numbers are moving in the wrong direction. In Nigeria, almost half of the population live in extreme poverty. In Ghana, it's around 26%, and in Cameroon, about 22%. These are massive shares, and they are rising, not falling. Just 5 years to 2030 isn't enough time. Even with rapid economic growth, lifting tens of millions of people out of poverty in such a short window would be a monumental challenge. Many countries are also facing slow growth, debt pressures, climate shocks, and conflict risks, making progress even harder. Poverty is becoming concentrated. While some regions like South and East Asia have made big gains, poverty is now heavily concentrated in sub-Saharan Africa. This means progress globally depends largely on turning things around in these countries, something that requires massive investment, policy reforms, and stability. To reduce poverty, governments in Nigeria, Ghana, and Cameroon must focus on 3 things: jobs, people, and governance. First, create jobs and diversify the economy by investing in farming, manufacturing, and technology. Second, create an enabling environment for private sector growth. Third, invest in education and healthcare to build a stronger, more productive population. Fourth, fix infrastructure so opportunities reach everyone. Finally, fight corruption to ensure resources are used where they are needed most. Real change begins with smart, focused leadership. In summary, the world set a bold goal: reduce global extreme poverty to 3% by 2030. But with poverty rising in places like Nigeria, Ghana, and Cameroon, the world is running out of time. The challenge is massive, but progress, even if short of the target, can still make a real difference for millions. The learning objectives have been met.
We hope you enjoyed this video presentation. If you found this presentation informative and educational, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing and sharing with family members, friends, and colleagues. Your support helps us create more informative and educational content. Until next time, stay strong, stay hopeful. This has been a presentation of Opomulero Media LLC.